What's up, everyone? Coach Laxbog here. Today, let's talk about a common question I see all the time, and frankly, a question I keep getting asked on social media. What position should I play on the lacrosse field? So there you are, showing up to your first lacrosse practice, or you've been there for a while, and the coach says, which position do you play? Well, probably the first way to start this whole process is to say, okay, more importantly, do you like to play offense, or do you like to play defense? That's a pretty easy question to ask. If you like to play offense, generally you would lean towards attack. If you like to play defense, you would probably lean towards the defensive end. Or, if you want to do both, you play midfield because middies play everywhere. They play offense and defense. So, let's talk about those three positions a little bit more specifically. So let's go to attack. What are the reasons you may want to play attack? Well, first and foremost, they're the ones that score most of the goals. They are absolutely the ones that score most of the goals. They have most of the assists. They have most of the points on the team. So if you want that pressure to score goals, you like that glory, go to attack. You need to be one of the best ball handlers on the team, meaning you are hitting that wall often, you are comfortable with a ball in your stick, you can pass well, you can hold on to it well, because one of the other things you got to be ready to do is take a hit from somebody else. Defensive players are constantly going after you, and they are some of the best players on the field at playing defense. So those long poles are going to be swinging at you. You need to be able to handle the ball in your stick and not be scared of someone swinging a stick at you. Quickness is another key element of a great attackman. Being able to be quick off of a cut, quick off of a dodge when you're going against someone trying to be shifty. Being quick will get you open, will get you the opportunity to shoot, will get you the opportunity to catch a pass, to shoot. You've got to be quick. Speaking of shooting, just being crafty in general. A lot of times attackmen are finishing in unique positions. Whether they're on the crease getting sandwiched by three guys, or they're trying to get a shot off from a low angle, or a unique position where you're shooting low to high, high to low. You're trying to be crafty, shooting around defenders. Being crafty as a shooter is an important skill for an attackman. So what positions make the most sense from other sports to be an attackman in lacrosse? Well, if you're a point guard in basketball is a great scenario where you go behind the cage, we call it X when you go behind the goal, and you have the vision to see the whole field. You're ready to set up the play. A playmaker is a great lacrosse player. So a point guard, maybe a quarterback, again, distributing that ball appropriately. Maybe if you're in soccer, you're a striker, you're a forward in soccer. Those are great positions that translate into an attackman on the lacrosse field. As we move from the attack zone, the offensive half, to, frankly, the entire field, we're talking about our midfielders. And midfielders have a special place in our hearts because they literally do everything. They play offense and they play defense. And to do so, you need to have some pretty good endurance because you are going to be running up and down the field, up and down the field. Now, we do have shift change in lacrosse, similar to a hockey where you have multiple line changes. We'll have our first lines and our second lines and our third lines, and depending on how deep your team is, you'll have multiple lines that you will rotate onto the field. But having stamina, having that endurance is important to be able to play both sides of the field. And while you're running, top line speed is perfect at the midfield position. Why? Because we're trying to create a lot of transition opportunities. You're trying to create a lot of opportunities in between the middle of the field, and if you have top line speed, you pick up a ground ball and you go sprinting on the field, you're going to create opportunities for your team to score. So you do get opportunities to score, but you also get to play defense and stop them from scoring. And speaking of transition, I love middies who are gritty. That's right, gritty. Not like the NHL gritty, who's fantastic, Flyers, what up? But gritty, as in you want to fight for those ground balls. Again, midfield's all about creating great opportunities in transition. If you're willing to fight for a GB that's on the ground ball, my apologies. If you're willing to fight for a ground ball that is on the ground and get it on the offensive side quickly, you can create a tremendous value for your team by picking up ground balls and just being gritty. I mentioned playing offense and defense. High IQ, I think, is important here because you have to know your offensive packages and your defensive packages. Attack and defense get fortunate enough, they only have to know their half of the field. But midfielders, you need to know both, and you are critical for both pieces. I can't tell you how many times the defense gets angry at the midfielder because they didn't slide in the defensive scheme the way they were supposed to. Offensively, they didn't run to the right spot when they were supposed to. Midfield is tough because you need to know both halves of the field, but it can be absolutely rewarding when you pick up that ground ball on the defensive end and you hustle it down to the other end and gets your team a goal. Everybody loves you for that. Speaking about a midfielder offensively, there's really two main types of shots that they typically will get. It's the outside shot or shooting on the run. Shooting on the run happens a lot because of the transition, because a lot of times you're dodging downhill towards the goal, stay downhill towards the goal, but you're dodging towards the goal from a lot of space up top, so you need to be able to shoot hard while being on the run. But the other one is that shooting from outside. any midfielder that's very good at shooting from the outside, and typically what that means is a high speed, a high velocity shot. If you can rip a shot from the outside, you can really pull the defense out, which gives the attackman more room to have those crafty finishes inside. But if you can shoot from the outside, that makes you invaluable because you could bust zones, you pull the defense out. You're a great midfielder with a really hard shot. Coming from another sport standpoint, what are the positions that translate the best? I would say from soccer, it's typically a midfield position, a center mid, a wing, whatever. You're the type of person that sets up the plays, come running down the field, you're transitioning the ball from defense to offense, you're playing both defense and offense. So a midfielder in soccer makes a lot of sense to be a midfielder in lacrosse. Typically, you've got pretty good stamina as well. Basketball, frankly, it could be really any position. I'm thinking more of guards, potentially some forward positions. There you can make the transition to lacrosse as well in a midfielder position. And maybe in football, we're talking wide receiver cornerbacks, right? You're out on the wings. You're good at making those hard runs, those fast runs, but then you're able to continue to keep doing it, right? You have to build up that stamina. So wide receiver, cornerback, even a running back makes a lot of sense as a midfielder on the lacrosse field. And lastly, the key element of winning championships, right? Somebody says defense wins championships. Our defenders are important, and probably one of the first and foremost skills that I want to talk about here that not everybody talks about, but those that know talk about: footwork. Footwork is crucial for a defender. A lot of people tend to think of defenders as big, giant guys that are very slow. That's not a good scenario. You want to be athletic, but first and foremost, your footwork's got to be good because you are reading and reacting. I mean, that's another skill you need to have, is be able to read and react. You are watching your attackman, typically, maybe a midfielder. You are watching them move, and you need to counter their moves in a very quick sort of way. So your footwork needs to be on point, because if you are not good at footwork, you are going to be stumbling over, and you are going to be on the wrong side of a highlight reel. Nobody wants that. Sure, the stigma is probably true. Generally, we see our taller players show up on the defensive end because they've got great range. These lacrosse sticks on the defensive end can be up to 6 feet tall. So you've got great range when you've got long arms and a 6-foot pole in front of you. Yeah, good luck, attackmen. So typically taller, bigger players, because this is the place where you're going to create some contact. If you're the guy that likes to mix it up a little bit, rough it up a little bit in there, you're that forward in basketball, you want to push people around a little bit, defense is the place for you, because you have got to be interested in collisions. You can't be scared of kind of impacts. You've got to be aggressive. You need to be slapping at hands. Ideally, pokes and lifts are better, but you need to be getting in there with your stick, hitting people with your stick and your body to be a good, successful defensive player. And lastly, one of the great things I love from a defensive standpoint is a great communicator. You can't be shy on the field. I want you communicating. The best defense, and one of just the wonderful noises as you're walking by a lacrosse field, you know when a defense is good because you can hear them, because they are all communicating in unison. Everybody knows what's going on. You can close your eyes and you know exactly they've got one person ready to help slide. They've got a second person ready to help slide. You know where the ball is because the goalie's communicating his position. You know everything that's going on because they are all loud. They are all communicating together. Someone that is able to communicate, that isn't afraid to talk loud on a field, is another great asset on defense. So how does that translate from other sports? Well, soccer, it's pretty much the same. You've got defensive players, your center backs, your left backs, your right backs. Those players probably make a lot of sense on the lacrosse field to be defenders. In basketball, yeah, again, I'm going to lean towards more of the bigger positions, the forwards, those that like the contact, that get interested in the contact, that aren't afraid to back away, that are aggressive. Typically, your forwards make a lot of sense on the basketball court. A 3, 4, or 5 position, maybe, I would say, is great for lacrosse defense. And then we go to football. Linebackers are fantastic. Linemen, I've seen a lot of linemen come through. And as I mentioned before, I had a quarterback come in as a defender. And what I loved about him is he took command of the defense. He told the defense what's going on. He was one of our best communicators. I told you I love communication. He was one of our best defenders just because he communicated really well. You frankly could be from any position and play defense, but those are probably the ones that make the most sense of a transition. The last position we didn't mention was goalie, and frankly, those guys are a different breed. We love our goalies with a passion because they do an unbelievable job. They stand in the midst of shots coming flying at them. They could be upwards to 100 miles an hour at the high school level. It's insane what they go through, so you can't be afraid of the ball. And really, you got to have quick hands. You got to be ready to explode. As soon as that ball is shot, you need to be ready to explode to where that ball's coming. There's a lot of work that takes to be a goalie. That's a whole separate video. But goalies are a special breed. We absolutely love them so much because not every person is willing to stand in front of the ball, in front of the cage. So there we go. We walked through the 3 main positions in lacrosse. different key attributes each one of those positions needs to do, and maybe if you're coming from another sport, what position you could play lacrosse based upon what you play in the other one. Hopefully this video helped you out today. If it did, hit that like button for me, hit subscribe, because we're going to talk about all kinds of ways you can continue to get better at this awesome, awesome sport. Thanks for stopping by this week. As we say around here, don't forget the little things. If you are quick, you will... Sorry, I got something weird in my mouth. Ew.